So, cognitive dissonance theory is yet another strategy that we have for protecting our sense of self. As we listen, you want to think about how we manage points of tension between our behaviors and attitudes. We call this experience of unpleasant tension cognitive dissonance. You also want to think about how this is connected into protecting our sense of self. Okay, so we're looking for cognitive dissonance and dissonance reduction strategies. Go ahead and just grab a scrap of paper for me. And we're going to do just a little exercise to get us started thinking about this. Okay. So on a piece of paper, just number 1 to 4. Okay. It can be a scrap, it can be anything. Okay. And all you are going to write down in answer to each question is yes or no. Number 1, texting while driving is dangerous. Yes or no. 2, it is important to stay informed about proposed legislation that affects my community. 3, climate change is a serious problem that needs to be addressed. And 4, alcohol and nicotine have negative impacts on developing adolescent brains. Okay, go ahead and flip over that piece of paper for me or fold it over or something and find a new little space. You're going to number 1 to 4 again. Okay, again, all you do is answer yes or no. Number 1, I text when I am driving. Number 2, I am able to name at least one bill affecting my community that was passed in the last year by the legislators in my county or my state. Number 3, within the last year, I have donated money or engaged in volunteer work to address climate change. Number 4, within the last 6 months, I have used alcohol or nicotine. Okay, so if we line up those two sets of questions, right, I'm sure you have noticed that the two are sort of in opposition to each other. The questions on the left all ask about your attitudes, things that you believe. Okay, the things on the right all ask about your actions, the things that you do. Sometimes we find that we hold either actions or behaviors and actions or attitudes and actions or multiple attitudes that can be in tension with each other, right? So if you, said that yes, texting while driving is dangerous, and then you said yes, I text while I drive, right? You probably felt that little feeling of tension, right? Between the two of those things. That unpleasant internal feeling is called cognitive dissonance. Okay. This might have happened on any of those. You might just take a moment and notice for yourself as you were working through these, where did you experience that sense of cognitive dissonance? Where did you feel it inside your body? You also might notice what your mind did when you noticed some dissonance between an attitude and a behavior. All right, so let me get to a little bit of the formal definition stuff. So, cognitive dissonance is the unpleasant feeling or state of tension that exists whenever a person holds two cognitions, beliefs, attitudes, behaviors that are psychologically inconsistent. Okay? The theory here is that people want to look at themselves favorably, and we want to see ourselves as consistent people. And when we hold two cognitions, beliefs, attitudes, behaviors that are in tension with one another, that are inconsistent, it doesn't lead us to feel good about ourselves. So, therefore, in order to feel better, reduce that physical state of tension or reduce the dissonance, we can act in a number of different ways. Okay. Here are a couple of strategies for this. We can reduce dissonance by finding a justification for why it is that we have this tension. We can reduce dissonance by changing one of our attitudes, we can also reduce dissonance by changing our behaviors. Okay. Um, I think that these probably are listed in the order of likelihood that we will do them. I think that's also because they're listed in the order of difficulty. Okay. So you can see in the example on the right, one way of thinking about cognitive dissonance might have to do with smoking. Okay, this is sort of a quintessential example in the literature. So somebody might believe that smoking cigarettes is unhealthy, but also they smoke a lot of cigarettes. Well, those two things are in tension with one another, and that unpleasant state of tension, right, causes cognitive dissonance. Okay. Well, there are a couple of paths out of the way here. One, this top one, is you could change your behavior, right? If you believe smoking cigarettes is unhealthy, then you can choose not to smoke cigarettes anymore, and that will line up those two things, reduce the dissonance so they are consistent. Right? On the bottom, you can see a different approach, which is you can change your attitude, right? If you want to continue that behavior, you could say, well, the research on smoking isn't that conclusive. I don't really know if it's unhealthy. And that allows you, again, holding this new belief allows you to feel like the belief and the action line up. They are consistent. Okay. You also could find a justification. Yes, but at least I don't, I don't know, consume ecstasy or something like this, right? It's less bad than doing something else. Or yes, but it would be so stressful to quit or something like that, right? You could find a justification. We use dissonance reduction all the time. When we feel those internal feelings of unpleasantness, of I did this, but I believe something else. Again, we look for these ways to feel better about ourselves. So, as you do the reading about cognitive dissonance, and also as you just go about your day to day experience, keep a lookout for moments when you feel those feelings of dissonance. And also notice what is it that you do in response. Okay, we'll talk more about this in class next week.